the PDCA cycle. The order of the places you are going to visit should be there in your test plan. And also you need to apply these actions as well. Hi friends, hope everyone is doing good, and I hope everyone got some time to go through our last couple of videos. And today I am back with another interesting topic. So today I am going to talk about test plan, why test planning is important and what are the components of a test plan, and also I will provide a new template where you can use for your work as well. So I hope this will be really interesting to you guys, where we can do some more practical things today, starting from today, because throughout the last couple of videos, what we were talking about like mainly related to the some theoretical thing. But from today onwards, like we can start talking about some practical things like the test planning. Then from the next video, I'm going to discuss about test design techniques. I hope these things will be more interesting to you guys when compared with last couple of sessions. Before discussing about the test plan, I will walk you through some important things like the PDCA cycle. So this is not only related to the quality engineering, we can apply this to anything in our life. So let's see what this PDCA cycle is. So for example, if you do something, then what will you do first? So will you start your work directly, or will you think about it, the work you have to do, and then about your output you need to receive, and then considering those, will you draft some plan, even like not writing anywhere, but at least in your mind you will have a draft plan. Then you will start working on that particular task or the activity. Then you will compare the result you received versus the expected outcome. Those things you will compare, and then based on your results you will do some analysis on your process or how you did that task. So if the expected output and the actual output were like almost same, then I think you have done really good planning and you can stick with your original plan. But if there are any changes, or when you do the tasks, you will see some differences. So where some differences need to be applied on your task, or some places where you need to streamline. So those things you can have a note, and later at the end you can apply those new changes to your process and update that process. And next time when you do that task, now you can do with the proper process when compared with the last time. So likewise you can go multiple cycles, and when you go through these multiple cycles, each time with the feedback from the previous cycle, you can do some improvements to your process and you can proceed. So this is the PDCA cycle. First it starts with planning, then do means where you actually do the task, then check, as I mentioned previously, where we will do the comparisons on the results, and then the act. In the act section is where we applied new changes to our process. So this is a cycle, there is no ending, it's kind of a loop. Every time it will be continuing PDCA, and then again it will go to the plan with the feedback from the previous cycle. So new changes you can apply. So for the agile process and everything, you can apply this PDCA cycle. So okay, let's take another example which is more related to the quality engineering aspect. Then let's say you have a new release you need to test. So before doing the actual testing, everyone will do some planning, at least some test designing, and then some identifying what are the different testing types you need to perform. So if you don't know about testing types, you can refer our last video where we discussed in detail about testing types. Then the test design techniques I will talk about in the next video. So at least those things will be done before executing the actual test. So this is the planning. Then after planning is successful, or after we complete the planning part, now we go to the actual execution, or the place where we actually do or execute the test cases. Now here at the do part, we will actually test the product. We will run our functional test cases, then we will do our automation test cases, and if there are any performance testing or anything, we will do all those things here. Then we go to the check. Check is where we compare our results. We have expected outcome and then with the actual outcome, and also the process, also the streamlining things where if we receive any feedback or the reviews, everything, we can compare this check step. Then we go to the last step where act. Act is like based on our results, on the process, the tasks, the feedback we received, the reviews, everything. Now we apply those things into our new process. So we do necessary updates or changes to the process, and then we start our next cycle. So if it is agile testing, so for let's say what we did was the sprint 1, and now for the sprint 2 we can go with the updated process, so the streamlined process. Likewise, we can continue with our process. Every time when the process ends or one cycle ends, we take the feedback and we apply those changes to the next cycle. Likewise, we can every time improve. With the time, we can improve and progress in future. So this is the PDCA cycle. I hope now it's more clear. Next, now we can talk about the test plan. So here I added a very huge definition. I'm not going to talk about this definition for the time being. I extracted this from the ISTQB glossary. So I hope everyone knows what ISTQB is. So it is the International Software Testing Qualification Board. It's the standard organization for the quality assurance, where they offer different certifications and different the process and everything. I will talk about it more detail in next video, where we discuss about different certifications for quality engineer. So for the time being, I will hold this definition and I will go to the next slides. So at the end of the video, we can come back here to the test plan definition, and then we can compare the ISTQB glossary definition versus what we learned. Now, before creating the test plan, we should know why we need to create a test plan. I hope it makes more sense. I will take an example. So let's take example from a real world scenario. Okay, we are planning to go on an annual trip. So what you will do first? So maybe you will create a draft plan about the places you will visit, and then you will create the itinerary with the places, some rough plan on the dates and the places or the order of the places you are going to visit. Those things you will create, or you will draft a small plan, because then it will be easy. So then based on the plan you can have your budget, and also you can know exactly the people who are going with you and those things, and based on those numbers you can plan the other things like the tickets, then the hotels, the food, everything you can plan accordingly. So nobody will like just take your stuff and go on the trip. So yeah, if it is a kind of a road trip or something, or going some closer place, then it's okay. But if you are go on some big trip like for a couple of days or to a different country, in that case it's not possible. So it's better to have it's better to have a plan beforehand. Otherwise you will be in trouble. Okay, let's say one person is going without a plan. So he will land at the airport. So now he will come out and now he will take some taxi, and then okay, he has to go to different places for looking for rooms, available rooms. Okay, then it will take more time. Then he will find a place, and sometimes it will be over budgeted, but he has no options. So then from now, like almost the day one is done. Next day again he has no idea where he should visit, or he doesn't have a clear plan on the places like order. So he will start with somewhere very far, then again he have to come back, then again go to a different location. But so it will be very hard, and it will consume time and his money as well. And also at the end of the trip he might have not achieved the best, or the best itinerary as well, because like even there are like, let's say 10 places to visit, he will ended up by visiting like 4 or 5 places. So that's how it will end up if you don't have a proper plan. But let's take another person who had a very clear plan. Before coming, he had already reserved the hotels, and he has asked the hotel for transfers, and he has the clear order of the places he will visit, from where to where, everything he has in his mind, and he has write down those things. So he has a proper plan. So when he landed at the airport, there will be a person who will be there from the hotel to pick him up, and then they will directly take him to the hotel, and then from the hotel he can go to the tourist places one by one according to his order. So then since he had a proper plan, it will save his time, it will save his budget, and also he can get the most out of his trip. He achieved more than the previous person. So that's the difference, like if you have a plan versus if you don't have a plan. So now let's apply the same to the quality engineering or quality aspects, or to testing. So if you don't have any plan, once you receive the release, you will just start going here and there. So now you will go and check the features or the feature documents, SRS documents, or the sprint stories, everything, and you will grab some features in your mind, and then you will go back and do some functional testing likewise. So now this will take more time, and there is a high chance you will miss more areas. Then you will report couple of bugs, and then those will be fixed again. Once you receive the new release, you will do few more testing and you will release, and there it will end up with so many issues at the production. Now let's compare the same, but you have a proper plan before that. Before you receive the release, you were creating test cases, following all the SRS documents, the sprints, the stories, everything. So before developers releases to quality engineers, now you have proper test cases, and also you have asked the DevOps engineer, so the person who is working on the environment setup, and the environment is also ready, and you have started creating test data as well. So if it needs some scripts or anything, all those are ready. So once you receive the release, now you know the exact order, what need to be tested and everything. And again, like if there are any performance testing or anything else to be done, all are clear. So now you are following a proper plan, and you have been guided throughout this journey. So it will be easy for you as well, and also for the other stakeholders as well, because they also can follow up where you are versus on your full journey where you are now. So it will act kind of a checklist as well. So there is a low chance to miss anything or miss issues to the production. So that's the difference between following a plan versus not following a plan. So now I hope it's more clear. Now I can walk you through this, the points, importance of test planning. I think almost all the scenarios are covered through our example. So the first point gives a clear picture to the whole project team. So that's correct, right? As I mentioned. So now when you do the functional testing, okay, now the whole project team knows where we are as a team. So still we are at the functional testing place. After that, we need to do automation testing. After that, we need to do performance testing or accessibility testing. Likewise, we have a clear plan or a clear guideline to follow. So at a given time, the project managers or the clients or the customers, anyone can share their feedback, or anyone can know where the project is. So based on the deadlines and everything, they can do any changes, everything. Now it's very easy. Or otherwise, if we didn't have the test plan, so every time all the stakeholders have to come and ask from the quality engineer, and he also might have no much idea about what portion is remaining. So that's why test plan is important. Next one works as a guide. So as I mentioned, even the quality engineer from his side, he also have a guide to follow. So now he knows first he need to start with test designing. Okay, it's done. Then he can go to test data preparation. Okay, it's done. Then he can go to functional testing. Okay, done. Next, he can start creating on the automation scripts. Likewise, he also have kind of a checklisted guide. Very low chance to miss anything if you have properly documented all those things in the test plan. So I hope those two scenarios are pretty clear. Next one is resource utilization. So how test plan help with resource utilization? So as I mentioned, this will be useful for all the stakeholders, including the project managers, the business team, and also we are mentioning all the important information like the different environments we need and different people who will be involved in the testing cycles likewise. So for the project manager also, now he knows what are the environments needed. If those are not available, now he has time to get the approvals from the management and make the engineers available and everything. And also in some places, like if engineers are working in multiple projects now, and also if the engineers having some vacation, so all these things we can plan beforehand since we have the test plan, because in the test plan we are clearly mentioned about the timelines, the estimations, the resource utilizations, requirements, everything, environment, all these things we will be mentioning. So this can be used as a guide by the project managers, business team, and the management for the resource utilizations as well. For this project, we need this much of developers or the quality engineers. So since this is a test plan, so this much of quality engineers, this type of technologies need to be there. So we need engineers with the knowledge of using these particular tools or technologies. Those things also we can plan beforehand now. And also about the environments, for perf testing we need a proper environment. Okay, now we can ask the higher management and get the budgets and utilization. So it depends on your organization, and those environments, readiness, everything now can be done beforehand since we have a clear test plan and all the information being documented there. So that is how a test plan will help you with resource utilization as well. Then the fourth point is faster time to market. So based on the above 3 points, now I hope this is more clear to you. So since we had the guide, we had the test plan which were working as a guide, so we didn't miss anything, and there is no repeating tasks or anything. So there's no go backwards, like, because we had the guide and everything was more clear from the very beginning. So in that case, it will save more time. So again, and the resource utilization as well. Otherwise, like if we didn't have this planning, when we come to the performance testing stage, now sometimes we might have to ask for the environment. It will take some time. Then for test data preparation and script creation, again take time. So all this time will drag the deliverables closer to the deadline or passing the deadline. But if we have these things planned or pre-planned earlier, now it will help you to deliver this quickly. So that is why the faster time to market is also mentioned under importance of test planning. At last, we have mitigate risks. So if you do the test planning, everyone is doing kind of a brainstorming. So we get ideas from everyone, all the stakeholders, or at least the project team. So now beforehand, we can identify the risks to this project or at the testing. So then, since these risks are identified, now we have time, we can think of the contingency plan. We can do the contingency planning or the mitigation planning, everything we can discuss and achieve those things earlier. So then we can use this test planning for mitigating risks as well. So these are a couple of importance of doing a test planning, but these are not the all. There are more advantages of test planning. So I hope now it's more clear for you why test planning is very important and why you should not skip the test planning. So in some projects, or maybe someone will tell like test planning is not needed because it will take more time. Without wasting time at test planning, we can quickly go back and we can jump to the testing stage and we can do the testing. But now you know, or if you face such a scenario with a lead or with the project manager of your team, so now you know why test planning is important, and now I hope you can explain them why test planning is important and why we should not skip the test planning, and they will also agree with you after you share this knowledge. So then let's go to the next part. So these are the components of a test plan. So when we create in a test plan, these things should be there in your test plan to make it a proper test plan. Otherwise, if you miss some important factors from your test plan, again you will end up with issues. And also when based on your feature, based on your project and everything, all these things might not be applicable for your project or your test planning, but these are like the key elements. So based on your need, you can decide which need to be added or which to be removed or anything else to be added also. So those things your team can decide. And also when talking about the test plan, we can create a test plan at different levels. That means like if you are creating a test plan for the whole project, that can be known as a master test plan. It will have all the details like the high level. Then we can have some phase test plans as well. For each phase of your project or feature, you can create some phase test plans. So it will have more detailed information for each phase, because the master test plan had all the details about all the phases covering. And then for the phase test plan, now you know more about each phase, and now the scope is reduced. Now you can do more detailed information here for the test plan, for the phase test plan. And then you can create specific test plans as well for each type of testing needed. For example, if you do performance testing, you can create a test plan for the performance testing. And if you are doing accessibility testing, you can create a test plan for accessibility testing itself. So those are specific test plans. So likewise, based on your need and based on your time and everything, you can decide which type of test plan you should create. Whether it's a master test plan, whether it's a specific test plan, or it's a phase test plan. So it's up to you and your team to decide and proceed. So however, it doesn't matter which type of test plan you create. All these test plans should have these different components, as I'm going to explain you. The detail which we are mentioning under each will be differentiated between these different types of test plan. The first component maybe we can include is the objectives. So when you do any kind of a planning, there should be an objective. So that is, I hope that is more general, nothing much to be discussed under the objectives. So you know why you create this test plan, all these objectives, the goals and everything. So these are kind of general things in any kind of a document you will create. So objectives, goals, those things also you can include in your test plan. Then you need to include the scope. This is a very important thing, because if you can remember the previous slide which we talked about the importance of test planning, I mentioned that test plan will work as a guideline, and also it will give a clear picture to all the stakeholders about the status. So in that case, the scope is a must. Scope we can divide into two parts, as in scope items and the out of scope items. In scope items means what are the things which we will be including in this test plan or the testing stage. So whether we are going to do unit testing, or whether are we going to do automation testing or not, likewise. And also if you are going to do performance testing, it is in scope. If you are not going to do performance testing for this particular release, then it will go under the out of scope. And also about different maybe features as well. If there is an integration with some third-party tool, and if you can't do that testing at your lower environments at the testing level or at the QA environment, so then it should be mentioned under the out of scope. We are not going to test this integration at the QA environment. Maybe we are testing that at the UAT environment, likewise. Because now everybody knows and everyone have a clear idea that what will be done or what will be excluded from the testing. Because when we have the clear idea about what will be included and excluded, then we can take any measures to cover those scenarios. Like for example, as I mentioned, this particular integration will not be tested in the QA environment. Now the project managers and everybody knows this area has not been tested. Then before pushing this to the production, we need to make sure that we test this at some level. So that's why we have the UAT environment, and we do the integration testing with this third-party service at the UAT environment. Likewise, you need to make those statements very clear in your test plan to give the full or clear view to all the stakeholders. So now I hope it's clear why we need to mention the scope in the test plan as in scope and out of scope. Then yes, you need to do reviews and versioning as you do for all the other documents. Then if you do the versioning and if you clearly mention like what was changed and why it was changed, by whom it was changed, those things will be like for the audit purposes. And otherwise when we have multiple versions, so then there will be some confusion. So these things will be cleared if you have a proper versioning. And also you need to do reviews as well. Not one single quality engineer will create the test plan and he will follow them. It's like the whole project team need to be participated here. Like, okay, the quality engineer can initiate this and he will be the responsible person for creating the test plan. But whole project team should be responsible for providing their views and reviews and do brainstorming, because the quality engineer will see from one view. But if you have the developers, the other persons and everyone, so everyone can share their ideas and it will be more useful to do a brainstorming. And then we create the test plan and we need to do reviews to identify anything if missed or any changes to be done. and then based on the review comments we need to update those things, and those things need to be done. And also, and all the review comments are fixed and everything is done, then we need to get the sign off for these documents as well. So those things, like for we are doing this for all the documentation, so we need to do it for the test planning as well. Then in the test plan you need to clearly mention about the schedule and high level estimations as well, because as I mentioned, project managers will use this for resource utilizations too. So in that case, if you have the schedules and the estimations or tasks and the high level estimations here, that's okay, because like at this stage it might not be clear how much of effort you need to put in man hours, but you can make rough estimations based on your previous experience or based on the experience from the other engineers. So you can do some rough or high level estimations, and based on those you can create a proper schedule. And also about the tasks breakdown, those things you can create at this level. So this task breakdowns, structure and everything will work as the guide for or the checklist for you while you at the testing stage, because now the tasks are clearly break down. You need to start with test designing, then test case writing. Likewise, those maybe if those tasks are there, and if you have the schedule and estimations, now you know how when to start and when to stop and how much days you will have to spend here, like those information you have, and it will be useful for the project managers and the other stakeholders too. Then you need to make room for the test strategies in the test plan too. So what are we going to talk as test strategies here? So if you can remember our last video, there we discussed about different types of testing, where I explained under different categorizations based on the level, based on the objective likewise. So under test strategies, we need to make sure that we incorporate that knowledge here for your test planning. So at the test plan, you need to clearly mention what type of testing you will perform here, what type of testing will not be done. So that is the out of scope again. So whether unit testing will be done and who will be responsible for the unit testing, and whether are you going to do performance testing or whether are you going to do regression testing, whether automation scripts will be created or not. Those things you need to make sure you are incorporating at your test plan, because again this will be used by different stakeholders and also it will be work as a guide. So those information you need to clearly mention under the test strategies too. Then risk. So again, if I go back to the slide previously where I discussed about the importance of test planning, there I mentioned that we need to talk about the risks, and then we need to discuss about the risk mitigation planning as well. So that's why under test plan you need to have a category called risk, where the whole project team will discuss and do brainstorming and identify risks related to this project, the test planning stage and everything. Then you need to clearly identify the risk mitigation or the contingency planning. Those things you need to plan beforehand. So all this information need to be included in your test plan, because at a later stage when you actually face this risk, now in your document you have what you guys discussed at the test planning stage. So now you know what are the mitigation factors or mitigation planning you did. So now you know what are the actions you need to take. Sometimes the actions you may have to take beforehand, and in that case you might have already applied these actions, or else now you know what are the actions you need to take. So all these risk categories or the risk factors identified, and then the contingency planning or the mitigation actions you identified, all those things need to be in the test plan. Then it will be work as the guide for you. Then again, resource allocation, as I mentioned, you need to mention about different environments you need, and then about different resources you need, about how many engineers, those things you need to mention, and who will be responsible for each task and under the roles and responsibilities, because then again you know everybody in the team knows who is responsible for this task, and no one will miss any task. Everyone knows beforehand, okay, I am responsible for this task, so it's my responsibility to get it done. So those things you need to mention. And again you need to mention about tools and technologies as well, because then the project managers also knows whether if we need to get any license and everything, if you need to make the environments ready, and also if there are no engineers with the knowledge of using these technologies, either they can hire new engineers or else they can provide some trainings to these existing engineers, those things they can plan beforehand if you clearly mention about these tools and technologies as well. And then again, we need to mention about the entry and exit criteria as well. So this is very important thing. The entry criteria means like when you should start testing. Once these particular preconditions are met, we can start testing. And also the exit criteria means once these things are met, we will end our testing or we can proceed to the next stage, maybe the release. So for entry criteria, maybe we can have different dependencies with other teams as well. For example, a separate team or a separate project team is working on one component, and component need to be available before we start our testing at this stage. Maybe the login part, let's say. So we are doing SSO login. So the SSO, that integration is done by a separate team. So for us to start testing, that team need to deliver the components, and that also need to be deployed in our environment in order to us to start testing. And also maybe some test data preparation or environment readiness, those things we can mention under the entry criteria. And also maybe unit testing pass or those things we can include based on your need. Then when it comes to exit criteria, I will take some examples. Let's say maybe we can have criteria like all the reported blockers and critical bugs should be fixed before releasing. Or else we can have another criteria like at least 90% of test coverage need to be achieved. That is not the pass-fail count, how many test cases were covered. Then based on the number of reported issues, like we can have defect severity metrics. Likewise, there can be different metrics involved here, and based on those stats we can decide our exit criteria. No blocker or criticals open. Likewise, so those are the entry and exit criteria. So this is also very important when you need to make a decision at the end to release or not. So if we didn't have this criteria, now it's like again there will be a confusion. So maybe the business team and the project managers were aiming at the deadline, so they need to push this as soon as possible. But from the quality engineer's perspective, he is thinking at the quality, so he need to achieve like 100% quality. So there is a confusion on what needs to be done. In that case, if we have this exit criteria clearly defined, now both teams can come to the same page, and now they can take some stats and then compare with the exit criteria, whether all the blockers and criticals are fixed, whether 90% test coverage was achieved or not. Based on those details, now you can make a clear decision whether to go to live or not. So that's why entry criteria and the exit criteria are very important. Then again we need to make note about deliverables as well at the test planning stage. So what are these deliverables? There can be different levels at the deliverables as well. Before testing, during testing, and after testing. Likewise, you can have multiple levels. So before testing, the deliverables are like the test plan. You need to finish the test plan, get the sign off. The test plan should be ready. Then maybe the environment should be ready. Test data creation is started, or test data is already prepared. Like then while testing, so what are the deliverables? During testing, the bugs reported, then the test reports, all those things. Then after testing, then again the stats, as I mentioned previously, like defect severity index, or these different kind of metrics, those things can be considered as the after testing deliverables. Likewise, that also it's up to your team to decide what are the deliverables at each stage, before testing or after testing, and while doing the testing. Likewise, so you need to clearly mention about these deliverables. So now it will work as a guide for you. Now you know at the end of the day or at the end of this stage, I need to prepare this kind of a document. So after testing, you maybe can include like having a UAT document or UAT test document, so that we will submit to the client, so then they will follow it and do the user acceptance testing. So no one need to come and ask you to create the document, because now you know there was a deliverable from your side. You are the responsible person to provide it. So after doing the testing, now you can start creating the UAT document. So that is one example. So likewise, you need to mention about the different deliverables as well in your test plan. So these are like the main components of a test plan. But as I mentioned previously, these are not the only components, there can be more components, and also there is no need to include all these things in your test plan. As I mentioned, based on your need, based on the scope, or based on type of test plan you are creating, you need to decide what items should be included or what items should not be included, or if anything else, then you can add that as well. So this is a kind of a team discussion where you need to decide these things. So you can follow a template, but based on your project team's need, you need to do changes to the template. And also there is something called this 5 Ws. So this is something used in journalism. The journalists are following this 5W approach when they are writing something. So the 5 Ws are who, what, where, when, and why. So when they write some article, they will include these things. Like for example, who did that thing, what did they do, where it was done, when it was done, and why it was done. Likewise, they will include this information in their article. So then the article has all the available information. Okay, for example, let's say it's about public riot happened. So then they will mention like who are the parties or the organizations joined this riot, and what were their objectives or goals, and where did they do this, when, the date, time, those things, and why. Those information they will include. Then the article is fully completed. It has all the necessary information. So that is 5W. Maybe we can include this approach for our test plan as well. So in test plan, if you can remember, we include about the roles and responsibilities, then about the resource utilization. So that means who will be doing these things, what and where again the environments. Performance testing will be done at the perf environment. When we had the schedule and the estimations high level. So that's when, and why. That is our objectives and those things. So we can follow this 5W approach at our test planning stage to make it more complete. So I hope it's more clear now to you guys why test planning is important and how you should approach test planning as a project team. So this is the test plan created by me. So I hope anyone can use this test plan for your need. There are no limitations. Without any limitation, you can use this one. Don't worry. So, and also as I mentioned previously, so this is not the exact, or this is not kind of a must to follow approach. So it depends on your team, the items you should include in the test plan and the items you should exclude. Those things you can decide. So there is no hard and fast rule saying the same template or the same pattern need to be applied for all the test plans. However, one important thing is like everything need to be documented for reference purposes. I have created a Word document since I can share this with anyone. If your organization is using some wikis, online wikis like Confluence or anything, so you can create the test plan at the wiki itself. So however, the main purpose or the main objective here should be like anyone within the organization or all the stakeholders should be able to access the test plan at any given time. So if it is available all the time, then it's okay. You can have it in Confluence or as a Word document or anything, but make sure that the things which we discussed, like the versioning, signing off, all those things are applied to your test plan. So this is my test plan template which I created. So you can do the versioning as I mentioned here, like version 1.00, then version 1.0.1 or 1.1.0 likewise, based on the change. And then you can include the version history in a table. Maybe there you can include the version, the date, the create, the person who changed, and some comments like why it was changed and anything. Those things you need to mention here. Then you can have the table of contents as for any document, so then it will be easy to access. Then when it comes to, so now the main items or the body of your test plan, you can start with some introduction, maybe giving some introduction about a brief description or introduction about the project or the features you will be including in this test plan. Like as I mentioned, whether it's a master test plan or the phase test plan or specific test plan. Likewise, if this is a master test plan, under the introduction you need to mention about a brief description about the whole project. Or else if this is a phase test plan, the introduction will have the description about the specific phase. Then if this is a performance test plan, or kind of the specific test plan created for the performance testing, the introduction will have information about the performance testing. Likewise, you can have a brief description under the introduction section. Next, you need to mention the objectives. As we discussed, the objectives, the goals, those things also need to be mentioned in your test plan. Then it will work as a kind of a guide. So at the end of the day or at the end of the testing stage, you can check whether these objectives are met or not, or whether these goals are achieved or not. Likewise. Then the main important thing, as I mentioned, the scope. You need to mention clearly the in-scope items and the out-of-scope items. So then this will be more clear for all the stakeholders, like what will be tested, or what items or what tasks will be done, or what will be captured here and what will not be captured. So in that case, you need to make sure those things will be included later phase or at a later stage, or whether those things need to be discussed with the team. So this is a must to include in your test plan, I think. Then the test strategy, as I mentioned. So what are the different types of testing you will conduct here? Whether unit testing, manual testing will be done, the perf testing, or those things. Again, like you can mention some high-level methodology, the responsible persons for each task. For example, like unit testing need to be done by the developers, then the performance testing is handled by the perf team. Likewise, those information you need to mention under the test strategy. Then we have a section, as I mentioned, for the environment setup. So now this will be more useful for the project managers and DevOps and everyone, because now they can work on the resource utilization, the environment preparations and those things, and also for the other stakeholders as well. And also for performance testing, if we are using a separate environment, and the spec is mentioned. For API testing, if we are using the same environment as the automation environment, those things are clearly mentioned. So then there are no confusion between different teams as well. Then the quality engineers or the automation script creators, the testers will not run the automation scripts in the perf environment, because it's clearly mentioned automation scripts will be done and run in this particular environment. So this is the specific environment for the performance testing. Likewise, everything is mentioned with detailed information under the environment setup. So, and also this will be work for the resource utilization and the budgeting and everything. Also, this will be useful. Then we are mentioning the schedule with high-level estimations and the high-level deliverables and those information. So again, this will be useful for the project managers and the others for the resource utilization, and also work as a guide for the deliverables. Now you know which deliverables need to be delivered at each specific stage. Then, as I mentioned previously, the other important thing, the entry criteria and the exit criteria. So this is also a must to include in your test plan, because now there will be no confusions at the testing stage, because beforehand you have identified the entry criteria and the exit criteria. What you need to do here is, like, you need to follow the given criteria, and if the criteria is met, if the entry criteria is met, now you can start testing, and then the exit criteria is met, you can go to the next stage, maybe the release to production or use acceptance testing, or likewise the mentioned next stage. So as I mentioned, you can have, for example, like unit testing need to be covered, or the environment should be prepared and the test data should be available as the entry criteria. And again, like test coverage should be minimum 90%, no open blockers or critical bugs reported for the exit criteria. Likewise, you can decide, and your team can decide what the best entry and exit criteria for your project. Then again, we need to mention the tools and technologies, as I mentioned. So then again, the project managers has the clear idea about what tools will be used and what technologies will be used, and also it will be a guide for the engineers as well. Then everyone can work on the business team, or the management can work on getting licenses and all those things for the tools which we are using. And also engineers also, they can start learning new technologies if we are using any new which you haven't worked. Likewise, those information we can mention under this section. Then roles and responsibilities. So I hope now this is more clear with the things which we discussed. So different tasks and who is responsible and what kind of responsibility he has, like whether he is the owner or whether he is they are to review. Likewise, those things need to be mentioned. Then this is the other important category, the risks. The risk matrix you need to create. Maybe you can have kind of a table like this. Then you can clearly mention what is the risk item and what is the area, whether it's the environment risk or the business level risk or technological risk. Likewise, then you can have a more clear description about this, and definitely you need to mark the severity, whether it is a critical or normal, low, and also you need to include the status, whether the risk is open, whether it is now already mitigated, or whether it is closed, like that. Because as I mentioned, this will not end after identifying the risk. You need to discuss about the risk mitigation plan, the risk contingency plan as well, and also you need to apply these actions as well. So that's why we need to include the status, whether the risk is open or whether it is already closed or whether it is already mitigated. You need to clearly mention, and also what are the mitigation actions and the responsible person or the responsible team to handle each risk. Those things you need to mention under this risks identified section. Then maybe we can include some couple of sections like the dependencies and assumptions as well, because as I mentioned previously, there could be some dependencies with some other teams or some other third-party tools or some other third-party organizations as well. All those dependencies also need to be mentioned clearly, because then it will provide a more clear idea about what dependencies we have or on which areas we are dependent on other teams or the other tools. Likewise, all those things, then we can beforehand work on, before starting our work, we can work and then get those dependencies resolved earlier. So that is why dependencies need to be mentioned. And also any assumptions you made while doing the test planning. If you made any assumptions, like for example, if you make assumption like this environment or these things will be ready, so that assumptions need to be mentioned clearly, because while you start doing the testing stage and the assumption you made is wrong, or if it is not ready, now you know why you are blocked here, because you made this kind of assumption. And also these assumptions need to be brainstormed, whether the assumption is the correct one or it's a wrong assumption. Those things you need to discuss. So that's why you need to mark all those things, information in your test plan clearly. Then also, if you have any references to any SRS documents or any kind of other document, all those references also you can include as a section, because anyone else who is later referring to this test plan, he also have the full idea now what are the documents you referred, and all the information are documented in your test plan. And any appendix you have, you can append at the end of the document. There could be multiple appendix as well, so all these things you can append here at the end. And finally, you need to have a sign-off section. This is very important, because like you will create a draft test plan, then you will do the brainstorming with the whole project team, then you will get review comments, then you will fix those review comments, and maybe again you can have another call or another meeting, then you can share these things, and finally you need to have the sign-off for the document. When you get the sign-off, now that means this stage or the test planning is fully completed. Till you get the sign off, the test plan stage is not completed. You can't consider the test planning as done till you get the sign off. Sign off also, it depends on your project team. It depends for your organization who should sign off. Maybe a lead, maybe the project manager, or maybe a manager. Likewise, it will depend based on your project, based on your organization, and you need to define those things who will sign off. Whether it will be a single person or whether it will be multiple people who need to sign off, those things you need to clearly mention on the sign off section. This is the end for our test plan template. I will share this test plan template with everyone, so please refer the comment section in the channel. So I will attach this document. I will share a link to the Google Drive where this is stored, so you can download it from there and you can use this test plan template for your work. So feel free to use this, and if you have any suggestions, please share with me. And if you have any questions related to the last couple of videos or this video, now you know how to reach me. Either you can use the comment section down here, or else you can drop me a mail at qvbro.pro@gmail.com. I am really happy to help anyone with all your queries. So this is the first stage, or when it comes to the testing phase, you can start with the test planning. Now, since the test planning is done, now you can move to the next phase, where you can design your test cases, the test designing. For that, we have test design techniques. So from the next video, I'm planning to talk about different types of test design techniques. So it will be more interesting. So keep in touch. See you with a new video for test design techniques. Happy testing.